She fought for what she believed in.
Yeah, it's okay. No, it's okay. I don't know if that's a problem. But we just had a little disagreement there. And the disagreement was just that she was getting a little worked up, and I was saying, oh, it's okay.
They're offering him water, and he's being very agreeable, warm, friendly, has a smile on his face, looks somewhat relaxed, although I think that the officers actually ask him if he's anxious because, well, we'll see in a few minutes.
So it was just more disagreement, and I just wanted to.
What was the disagreement about?
It was. I wouldn't even call it disagreement. It was just that I'm dirty and I can't change being dirty. Like I got dirty feet, like I sand on my flip-flops and stuff like that. It was that we were coffee.
Okay, sand in his flip-flops. So those of you who have watched the closing door, back door of the van video, will remember that there was at least one flip-flop, I think, found outside the van, and people were speculating that it was his. I don't know if we've had an opportunity to see his feet yet, but if some keen, astute viewer notices his feet, we could confirm if the flip-flop matches.
Shot for someone, just we were there from 9 to 3. So yeah, there's a few little things, just little relationships. I don't know good relationship.
I've been married for over 5 years now. So.
There's a lot of little things.
Okay, I've been married for over 5 years now. So it's that sort of, I can relate to you. Yeah, buddy, I've been there. Yeah, bro, you don't have to tell me.
We weren't physical before the point where I said, all right, let's just take a breather and like walk away for a minute.
Okay, we weren't physical before the point where I said, let's take a breather and walk away.
And I'll go for a walk this way, and you can go walk that way and walk. You know, there's that moon for what is it called, moon flower? Right? Yeah, nice areas. You can go either way, it's all shaded. So let's go for a little walk and breathe and come back.
So when I first heard him saying this, again, before her body was discovered, I was impressed. I'm like, okay, that's actually a really good coping mechanism for a couple that is getting on each other's last nerve and cooped up. You know, I'm impressed. That's great. But I realized that I was really applying the wrong standard to analyze that, since when you're camping and the vehicle is your sole lifeline, like you're so vulnerable, like literally in the middle of nowhere, you know, in the desert where you could die of heat exhaustion, you know, in 4 hours or what have you. It really is different when someone is essentially prohibiting you from accessing the place where you feel safe and connected to the world. So I recognize now that my initial reaction to that was really an incomplete analysis.
But then I sound not upset with her. She got worked up because she had a phone in her hand and keys and everything. And she wanted, I'm not accused of her, rings. She had rings, her phone. And I was holding on to the keys because I didn't want to go anywhere.
Okay, so he's explaining like the rings and the nails. He talks about nails at some point, you know, the phone in her hand, that she was really worked up. And I think what he's trying to say is sort of minimize the consequence of these scratches on his face and his hand. Like, you know, she's got rings, she's got nails. It kind of inadvertently scratched in the process of flailing. You know, the injury isn't really there. It's just sort of evidence of the, you know, he's minimizing, which is interesting to me because he could use this opportunity to screw her over and to lay it on thick and talk about how he's been battered by her and is scared of her, and they would lock her up. But he doesn't want to do that, because a batterer, if that's what in fact he is, or an emotionally abusive, controlling person, doesn't want to let that partner out of their grip for 1 minute. And the idea of him not having any control over her is, I think, daunting to him, especially if she's in jail and now suddenly being given, you know, all of this material on, you know, diversion programs and domestic violence, and you're gonna have to go to counseling, you're gonna have to do this and that and the other and take classes. Even if she's wrongly identified as the perpetrator instead of the victim, he's not gonna want that, because He doesn't want her to have even the seed planted in her head that this is a toxic relationship that she needs to safely extricate herself from, which is very complicated because leaving, as I said before, is when we see the most lethality. So, yeah, he doesn't want her to go to jail. Mm-mm.
My big fear is, I don't have my phone, I don't have a phone, so she goes off without me. Alright, I'm on my own. So, I was saying, let's just go for one, because she was trying to get the keys for me, so I just going, just wait back up, and it wasn't, I didn't get overtly physical, I was just trying.
So he said it like, I don't want to push you, like I didn't get overtly physical. He was just trying to like back up, and she's trying to get the keys. So he's trying to present a narrative where there was no intent on his part to hurt her, and she was just kind of emotionally desperate and needed the keys to get into the car, and refusing to allow him to announce that there's this, temporary break where they both walk away. So he's really setting the police up to see this as just, an emotionally exhausted couple who is on each other's last nerve after spending many months together camping, and the police bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Keep it away and then I got really loud, and that's probably fear of his attention where I was going, back up, get away, just give me a phone.
Okay, so you said you pushed her to create some distance, obviously, right? What happened after that?
Okay, so notice how they actually added some words in. So you said you pushed her to create some distance, right? I don't think he really said that, I pushed her to create distance, but they added that in almost like as an assist. Okay, so the only reason you were pushing her was just to create distance for safety so that this didn't become physical. It wasn't that you pushed her because you're violent or angry or using that physical domination to abuse her. They didn't couch it that way when they formulated the structure of their question, did they? You can ask questions to elicit a specific answer, and police do that all the time. And that happened a few times here, as you'll see.
Okay. So I got the scratches on the phone. So you pushed her and she hit you?
She was... it wasn't like a...
So he says the scratches on his arm are from the phone, and maybe she has a case that has rhinestones or something on it that, can scratch. Otherwise, my phone can't scratch anybody, so there must be a case or something on it.
Pushing, she was already, I don't know, she was already swinging, and I was just...
I mean, this is this almost jovial kind of like, I don't want to say like, swinging, because the unspoken thing here is that these three men are concluding that she was the violent one and that he was put in this awkward position of having to both defend himself but not hurt her, and not, provoke or exacerbate it, and try to de-escalate while at the same time, not allowing themselves to get hurt, and, that little dance that men have to do when women are just, emotional and hysterical and flailing about. That's what the three of them are kind of, twisting this tale right now. You can tell by like the little awkward chuckles.
A lot of angles, a lot of nails, a lot of things. Yeah, you got 3 scratches in your back. You got 1 on your left side of your back. You got 1 in the face here, and you got 4 below.
They're going to great pains to identify every single mark of the scratches from her fingernails, from her nail, from her rings. They're documenting this, and you'll see later that they get a camera and they're taking pictures of his hand, his neck, pulling up this, lifting up the shirt, documenting, taking pictures. They don't do any of that to her. They're not documenting any injuries that she may have, or asking her to lift up, the back of her shirt so they can look at her back. Or they have a woman officer on the scene that they could, ask to do that, and they don't, because that doesn't fit with the narrative. The narrative that they've adopted is that he's the victim and she's the primary aggressor, and so they're looking for evidence that confirms that.
Right, so it's like 2 things. Do you mind lifting up your right sleeve for me? I'm curious about it.
That officer there was even like showing like a demonstrating an example of what women do, kind of saying like, I get it, you know, like you don't have to be embarrassed that she got the better of you.
Oh, okay. I suppose fingernails, but I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about
Is it
fingernails.
bruised or tender?
See, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining, which is both because I don't think he wants her to go to jail, and second, because of his sort of male dignity of it not being very masculine to complain if their female partner assaults them, which is about gender role socialization and double standards.
Was a no woman in this life, short upon the earth now was her time. Of all the seeds she'd sown and the people she had known, deeply did she touch the soul of mine. She called a spade a spade. She stood on the edge of reason and even faced with death until her final dying breath. She fought for what she believed.